So welcome to the Writer's Mindset series. I'm Yvonne Redden, and I'm going to be chatting to a variety of storytellers and authors about what inspires and motivates a writer. Is it a particular mindset that you can develop, or are writers born with this gift of storytelling? So my guest this week is award-winning Irish author Amanda J. Evans. Thanks for joining me this week, Amanda.
And thanks, Yvonne. Delighted to be here with you.
I'm dying to hear your story because you've got loads of different branches to your writing story. So I ask my questions using the 5 W's of writing, which you're very familiar with. So I'll just jump in and get into who was influential in your writing career.
So I have to go all the way back. And I was obviously an avid reader as a child. Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
I loved them. Enid Blyton, loved her.
Loved Enid Blyton. Yeah.
And as I grew then, obviously you hit a certain age group and you're Judy Blume. I loved Judy Blume. And then I kind of lost touch. You know, I had a tragedy in my life and stuff, and I stopped writing, stopped reading, kind of stopped anything. And I think it was in around 2011, there was a new bookshop that opened up in Newbridge where I was living. It could have even been the year before that. And she sold, you know, leftover books from publishers. So they weren't brand new books, but they were, and you'd get 5 for a tenner. And I fell in love with her shop, and I used to just go in for the chat. And I happened to be in Deals one day, and they had books, and I bought a book called Elfland for $1.50, and it was a huge paper, a hardback book. And I started reading it, and I think I only got about 20 pages now. I have so missed this.
Oh, yeah,
and that was it. I just, oh my God. And it was a fantasy book. It was elves and magic. And I just thought, oh, where have I been? You know, it was like a light bulb moment. You cut this part of your life off, and this is why you've been so unhappy, and you know, kind of things. And I got chatting with that lady in the shop, and I was going in, and I was buying all the young adult, because they were the kind of fantasy with the romance. And I discovered Alison Noel, and she'd had I think it's a 6-book series, and I just started devouring them. And kept adding, and my husband was kind of going, have you not got enough books? And I was
open your own bookshop.
No, all I could, I've done everywhere in the house. But I wrote non-fiction, because non-fiction is fact. And I said, well, I can't do non-fiction wrong. And I had written a book about, you know, suicide and the effects it has on the people that are left behind, and growing up with the stigma that's still attached, all of that kind of stuff. And but my heart was with fiction. You know, I'd written fiction. I wrote my first book when I was 7. It was called The Elf Fairy, and I remember my dad got it all typed up, and he was, you know, I think I sent it to Penguin or something.
So you're definitely somebody that has been born with this gift. So that's the whole thing. But I know you can develop it, though, I think, through courses. And I think you can, but you have it in you. You know, that's the difference. Is there somebody, your dad would have been influential in your career then, was he?
No, he just, like, both my parents would be really supportive no matter what I want to do. But I was the type of child who was very much kind of a loner. I liked to sit and draw and write, and I used to write the next episodes for programs I was watching on TV. So I wrote loads of My Little Pony and the Care Bears, and I had Ghostbusters in Mars, because, you know, when you're 10 and these are what you're watching on the TV, and I loved escaping into those worlds. And, you know, it was just, you could sit for hours upon hours. Obviously, I was probably the typical teenager, doom and gloom, and I wrote poetry. But it was more of a means for me to express emotions, because I lost my dad at 13. So, like, it's such a
very young.
You know, it's that age where you're just
it's an awkward age where you're moving into a different time of your life and changing and everything.
So my writing became very, very personal and very private. it was all probably very much doom and gloom, and it was me
Yeah.
dealing and coping, and but I just didn't have I lost my confidence. I lost that, as a child, you say, I'm going to do this, and you'll do it. But as you move into adulthood and you start judging yourself, and
Yeah.
and I
We're too
just,
hard on ourselves growing up.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
think I could do it. And
Yeah.
2016, I joined a local writers group here in Oldcastle, where I live, and just to do the writing exercise, I was just like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
heaven. And
was there people along the way that you met though that really helped your writing journey?
I think I've always kind of stayed in tune with writing. Like, I mean, I've had a website since websites were invented.
Yeah.
I was always kind of standing in the background as such.
Yeah.
And I would have, over since like 2016, I've gone to loads of panels and literary festivals.
Before that, you were very much liked to be more independent. Yeah.
Yeah, before that, I was your normal average person working for the health board, just hiding.
Yeah.
I was keeping myself in a box, writing privately.
Yeah.
If I needed to express something, I found it easier to write it.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that completely.
Yeah.
Because look, I want to touch on this because I'll tell you why I really get that. Your genre of writing is there's quite a variety, isn't there? Because it's fantasy, romance, fantasy, you've got memoir, you've got poetry. So there is no particular genre that we could say that you do, because you do quite a lot of different varieties.
Yeah, but I like to read a lot of different varieties. But if I want comfort, comfort is my romance. Like my tagline would be "Believe in happy ever after," and that is, no matter what I write, as I have been told, I didn't even recognize it myself, but all my characters are dealing with grief.
Yeah.
Now, it's grief in different varieties of way. It may be grief through death. It may be through the life they thought they were going to live is lost. Most of the times it's kind of death, but it's the emotional impact of it. They're very emotion driven characters, but there's always that hope and belief in getting the happy ever after. And that, to me, is what makes the book.
We have to have that kind of positivity spin on it at the end, because life is tough. I mean, human interest stories is definitely your genre. I love to write like that as well. I'm more write about real things than fiction. I find it easier. Like what you just said there, that really resonates with me. That I write about my experiences easier than making up something. So I think that's really interesting what you were saying. And like, do you write wherever have you got an office there, or do you like to write outside? Do you have?
I have my office here. I'm very old school. I write everything pen and paper.
Do you?
It's all in notebooks. I have a box full of notebooks. So my first drafts are all in notebooks. Nobody can ever say they wrote it, because I have the pen and paper notebook. And I don't know, it's something in me. Pen and paper just connects. I do type. Sometimes I will type, but I find it flows better when you pen and paper, because you're not looking at the red lines and your blue lines for your grammar, or red lines for spelling mistake. That
the writing's different as well, because on the computer it's the same. So maybe there's something in that you can write it yourself. Your handwriting's changing as you're writing the words and the story. There's some different kind of a flow, isn't there? Yeah. I love that. I'm always writing down little notes. I've not about 10 notebooks beside me all the time, writing down different things. And like, is there a better time for you to write? Do you like to write morning? I think everyone kind of seems to be the morning writers, because you're fresher.
I used to do mornings. I used to write for 10 minutes. I had a 10-minute break between the kids being ready for school and going to school. And I literally used to just take those 10 minutes. Would you write
them? Oh my God, yeah.
And I would, like, you'd get 3 or 4 notebooks. Now, nobody else could possibly read the scribble, but I could, you know. And that's how I wrote my novels, those 10 minutes in the morning. But if I can write at any time. But if I'm working on a project or something, it's put in my diary for morning. I
Yeah.
will allocate half an hour for the morning and just write. That's my writing time. But I can just, I suppose, just pick up. I just normally say, right, lads, let's go. I'm just telling myself, right, this is writing time. And as soon as I pick up the pen, then it's just like, and I try not to, like, I'd have loads of question marks because I might have forgotten something from yesterday, but I just stick question marks in.
Right. And that works for you. And like, where do the ideas of your books come from? I mean, I know a lot of it, you said, like the fantasy side to it. So you have that real, you love Star Wars and all that kind of thing. So is your fantasy, it's come from movies, it's come from things you watch and stuff, is it?
It probably comes from inner beliefs as well, because everything is good versus evil.
Yeah.
And I always believe good always wins.
Yeah.
And it's a real, that's just a real, and that's what comes out in the stories, no matter what genre.
Yeah.
Good will always win out. And I don't think I'd like a book where that wasn't the case. I think I'd be like, oh, now some people would probably love that type of genre as well. Just for me personally, I like the happy ending.
Yeah.
And I think that just really does stem back to when I lost my dad and stuff, because people would say, if you had one wish in the world, what would it be? And I just always said, I just want to be happy again. But that's grief, and that's being a child, and it's something you move past. But I think I remember borrowing and taking one of my mother's mills and but they were all that real true love. And I always remember films like The Princess Bride and
I loved that.
and
I loved it.
Dirty Dancing. I mean, my daughter hates it, and I'm going, but it's so good. It's different
well, now they have the West Side Story. I can't wait to see West Side Story on the screen.
Exactly.
That was one of my favorite movies ever. My mother loved musicals, and she instilled that in us. But all Oklahoma, all those Seven Brides for Seven Brothers must be my favorite ever. So I love that kind of movie as well. And like, usually they are good endings on them as well, aren't they? They never made the movies years ago to have really bad endings.
No.
Calamity Jane as well as another one. They always had a good outcome in the end. But I'm dying to see that. And like, so why? And so you write, you find it very therapeutic writing. I think that's why you write, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I love, even when I'm reading, I like to become the main character of the book. I love just, and I'm a very slow reader. I like to read slow because I like to put myself in the world, and I like to read and become the character and feel their emotions and everything. And I do try to bring that in when I'm writing as well. When I'm writing, it's like I'm watching the movie in my head.
Yeah, you can visualize.
Yes, I do. It's, some people say their characters talk to them. I'm watching a movie. I always liken myself to a transcriber. I am transcribing what I'm seeing in my head and what the characters are saying and stuff. But everybody is different. Everybody is so different, and that's
really get engrossed in the characters and in the story and everything. That's amazing. And I know I found you on Facebook because of your ad for your wonderful idea, the novel planning journal. So can you maybe tell people how that came to play and why it's so important? I think it's a fantastic tool to have.
Well, actually, I started doing a new course earlier this year. I started in July, and it's all on it's taught by Bob Proctor, and I'm doing it with an Irish coach. So it's all about your mindset and thinking, and kind of trying to create the life you want. So it's like what are your goals?
The law of attraction.
What would you really, really like to be? And I was like, well, I want to, do what I love doing every day, but help others around the world, achieve their goals as well. And obviously it relates to writing because, as a writer yourself, you're probably always answering questions for people, and I love doing it.
Yeah.
And I happened to be, I don't know what I was doing. I was sitting here one of the days, and the idea just popped into my head. the novel planning journal. And I, you mull on it, but it didn't go away. And I said, right, it's not going away. So let me think, what is this? And I was sitting having a chat with my daughter, and I said to her, I have this idea for a book. And she said, oh, what is it? And I was telling her, I said, it's nonfiction, like I said, how to write a novel. So I said, I want to do characters and setting and how you plan all those elements and stuff. And she said, I want one she said, if you're doing one, I want one. And I went, okay. She's avid at doing characters. She's learning game design. And she said, oh, Mom, she said, So I kind of sat down and I thought, right, well, what's the most common things people will ask me, or where do I get stuck? Now, I would not be somebody who plans a novel. And I'm very, very open and honest about that. I love the story just telling itself.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I do come to the end of my first draft with loads of question marks. Yeah. Because maybe I haven't come up with the name of a town, or I haven't given time to do certain elements. And I kind of thought, well, where would I really, spend time? I have tried planning, and I spent 2 weeks planning and doing a really, really in-depth plan for a book. And then I didn't want to write it because I knew what was going to happen.
Would you write that out manually yourself if you were planning?
If I was planning, yes.
Yeah.
I do in the notebook. So I was devising, and I thought, well, there are loads of guides on how to plan a novel that is going to tell you how to break your chapters down. But there isn't one that would be how to write a novel from your initial idea right the way through, and all the different components and sections. So before the novel plan journal even starts, there is a section on who is my book going to be for. I have loads of questions that you answer, and there is space to answer them. Who's it going to be for? What do I want readers to get from it? What type of story do I want to tell? Because, as you know yourself, if you're writing a crime story, it's different, and there's different expectations than if you are writing a romance novel.
Completely as well.
Yes, there's a lot. So, and then I have a huge section that talks all about characters.
Yeah.
And how important they are. And, spending the time learning about your characters, which I would definitely do.
Yeah.
Because, so I have loads of questions you can ask. And then there's a section that tells you all about your characters' goals, their beliefs, their earliest memory, all this kind of stuff, because they feed into creating this actual real person. And we also have it for the villain, or the, your antagonist. And most people say, oh, you're a villain, but they're real people too. And so they have beliefs, and their beliefs is what makes them behave the way. And it all feeds into your plot, because if you know that your character's greatest fear is maybe death of a loved one, then your plot, you have your plot, right? They're terrified of this, right? Let's throw their wife in an accident, and and you can really work with that. So, and then I've got all about your setting. And of course, different genres will have different. Historical fiction, you're going to need a lot of research, because you're doing, what was the weather like back then? What type of clothes did they wear? So if you know, if you know all of this, and you're very familiar with it before you start writing your book, you're not going to have what I would have, all my question marks, and have to go back and find out afterwards.
That's a great idea, because I haven't seen anything like that out there. I see all the journals on Amazon, but they're all gratitude journals. They're, the law of attraction, vision journals. So
I have one beside me. This is it, but it's
very useful.
Okay, in the back you're going to have lots, because that's where you're going to bullet point or put notes about your. Actually, I do everything in this, from synopsis.
Fabulous.
Synopsis,
blurb and everything.
Blurb.
Yeah.
There's a section in it on when, as you're saying, when you're finished your book. So if you're going to do submission to agent and publishers, there is a thing in that talks to you all through your book. The 5 things that you must tick from their perspective, your first line, your first paragraph, your first page, your first chapter, and then your first 3 chapters. Because if you don't, they are so busy. So if they read, your query letter and they think, oh, I like the sound of this, right? I'm going to have a read here, this person's pages, and they open it and the first line is like, you know, if you take, you know, the clock struck 13, which is like, you know, the somebody's going to say, oh, and they'll keep going. And if they're
you have to
still,
hook them in straight away with that
you
first line.
have to, and you know, and so I've all of that covered. I've all about how plot, the structure of your book, so what needs to go where the turning points are, where everything is. So you have all that knowledge before you come to the section, which is your chapters. And there it's, I have it stated plainly, you don't have to. You might, like what I will use the novel plan journal is when I'm out and about during the day and ideas pop in for the next chapter, I can just jot it in on say chapter 2 or chapter 7 or wherever I'm working. He's going to do this next.
Yeah. And you can go back to it then and have a look and see what you wrote.
It's just bullet points. And I also am going to find it. I filled one in while I was doing my final edit on Winterland. And I actually filled in the novel plan journal as I went along because I said, I know I'm writing a sequel. And the book was written 3 years ago. So it was like, ooh, okay. And I started filling it in. So I know I can just open that beside me at the desk if I need to know, okay, hang on, that character, what color hair did he have again? And rather than having to trawl through the manuscript, I can literally open that book beside me.
Very used, because a lot of people use online tools as well, Amanda, you know, like Miro, and there's lots of different ones. I like a hard copy. And
well, I always will have a notebook.
Yeah, I always would too. Yeah.
Always notebooks beside me. And, you know, so if you have this beside you, and it is in paperback as well, you can just open, right, I'm doing my characters, and you can open and say, oh yeah, I said that. I said he had 2 sisters, not, you know, because you can put all that information in.
It's a brilliant idea. Where can people find it?
They can find, I did run a very special offer, that was just a private offer for signed copies, and that finished, and it's now on Amazon.
Yeah,
brilliant. So it's paperback and hardback. They'll find it on Amazon.
Great. Just look up yourself and they'll find Amanda J. Evans.
Yeah.
Great. I'll be putting that up there. I think it'll be a lovely gift for Christmas as well. You know, even for like younger people, anyone that's interested in writing, it's just giving them the structure that they need to just even begin an idea, you know, just write the idea down. Yeah,
it breaks it down easier, because if somebody says to you, you have to write 100,000 words.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's, you know, 400 pages typed, you know, it's, but when it's broken down into small chunks and you say, right, well, you know, you've chapter 1, break that down into 8 little sections, and you can work on a section a day.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or it's like word counts. I mean, you're probably like myself, and you'd read somebody and say, I wrote 5,000 words today.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never going to be a writer now, because I can't write that much a day. And
I know. I've interviewed Jules Call. I think she wrote 90,000 words. It could have been more for her book, like in 6 weeks. And I'm going, it's taken me years to write even 25,000. I think that's the most I've ever written. But it's just, some people it just comes out. And just some people it doesn't. So that's why you've got your anthologies, you've got your short stories, you've got all these different genres which suit each writer. I know I'm never going to write 90,000 words. There's not a chance. I'm more a short story writer, I think.
Yeah.
I think I know that now. So how did your daughter find your book when you had it published? Was she delighted?
She's been handing them out.
There you go.
One of her friends is doing a creative writing course. I said, Mom, will you sign a copy for him for his Christmas present? And I said, are you giving me money? No. And she has one. She as soon as the first printed lot came in, she took one for herself anyway, because she wanted one.
Is this a recent book that you've got published, Amanda?
Yeah, it only came out in November.
Okay, all right, brilliant.
Yeah,
it's only out there. People have to get this. It's fun.
It was fun. It was very fun because I hand designed every page, and then my daughter did the cover, and also told me what fonts to use inside, because I actually designed every page in Canva.
Yeah, Canva's great, isn't it? I love it. I
just loved being able to put in my lines. And, you know, you've questions and lines rather than just Microsoft Word.
Yeah,
because I was going to put little images and different things, and I didn't in the end. I went more plain. But
did you self-publish it then as well, Amanda?
I did, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I did for this one. Yeah, I did, because I suppose I know the process.
You know the process by now because you've had such experience with
Yeah.
self-publishing and traditional as well. It's very competitive, isn't it, for self-published authors out
Oh,
there?
extremely. Yeah,
Yeah,
extremely. It's the reason I said no, I'm not going to self-publish my novel. My novel is finished 3 years, it's sitting on my thing. But I said no, I just, this time around, I want the expertise and the backing of a company that knows what they're doing, because I want to learn from them as well.
yeah,
And so I just said no. And plus I couldn't think of an idea for the cover.
yeah.
And I just said no. And I just said, nah, right. I'll traditionally, and it's been sitting there, and then just, I'd say in about, probably in May, I happened to open it on the screen for something, and I said, you know what, I'm going to do a final edit on this and send it off. So,
Now, when you say send it off, so when you finished writing your book and your manuscript, what's the next process for you? I mean, I know you've done a bit of both. Like if you've self-published, do you get a proofread? Do you get a reader's report? Do you do all that? Do you think that's important?
I will, after I've done, if I need to, obviously after I've done my edits, because we all have to read it a couple of times and fix and change and make sure your plot works and everything. After that, I normally send it to my Kindle, because when I open my Kindle, I'm in reader mode and I will spot everything.
Great.
So I will fix anything there. I do have certain people that will beta read for me that would be in my genre, and they will read everything for me. And one of them is an editor, so if there's any things that need fixed, she will let me know.
Yeah.
I don't get a reader's report, and the reason I don't is because it's very hard to get a reader's report in my genre. There aren't that many people that will say that they want to read paranormal fantasy and romance, even though they probably read it but don't, it's one of those in the closet
It's a
genres.
tricky
Like
genre. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I will, pay for editing. I have no problem paying for editing. I think it's really important. I will pay for cover design. If I'm self-publishing, I will pay for cover design. I'll pay. I haven't really paid for a proofreader because I tend to be very, very particular.
Yourself.
And I read it on my Kindle and I will spot. But like grammar and certain things like that, yes, I need an editor. They wouldn't necessarily be coming back with big changes to my books, but sometimes they might say, you've said she cried 5 times, maybe change one of them, or she has the same reaction every time, maybe swap it up a little, things that you won't spot yourself, somebody else always will. If I were going traditional publishing, then the next step after I have it proofed and edited, you still kind of do get an edit done, even if you're going to submit to agents and publishers, because they're actually just so busy. And people, years ago, you'd send what you think is your best work,
but they want perfect, polished and all now.
They do now, because there isn't as much staff in any of the places, and the better you can present your book, the better.
And I think there's been so many people during the pandemic alone that have written a book. So they're probably getting loads of submissions as well. So you've got to stand out from that, don't you? You've got to, there has to be something unique about your book for them to keep going and look for more.
Well, if they spot mistakes or typos or errors in the first paragraph or first page,
you're gone.
That's it, unfortunately.
It has to be spot on.
They're getting thousands of submissions every day. So
can you imagine all they read? That's a job in itself, reading through everyone's submission.
Exactly.
I know you secured a publishing deal with Henderson Publishing. They're based in Nebraska. So
they are. They're a kids publisher.
They're a kids publisher, yeah.
So I can't even count back the years. I think it was 2016. I'm not sure. And it came about, they're a husband and wife team, and they both write. They they'd had a magazine, a kids magazine, and I had a couple of poems, because I like to write poems, and I had sent a poem in, and it got put in the magazine, and they did a magazine every quarter, and they asked me, would I do something for would I do a feature poem for their Halloween issue that was coming out. And so I wrote one. It was I think it was spread out over 6 pages, and I got my daughter to do the illustrations for it because they asked, and they loved it, and they asked me, would I turn it into a short story instead of a poem, and would I be willing to create a book of short stories for that age group, which is like it's probably 8 to 12,
Yeah.
around that, the middle grade they call it. And I just said, yeah. It had to be the most fun project I ever did.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun to do like spooky stories for kids, but they all had kind of a moral or something in them. And I think I wrote it in 2 weeks.
But the great opportunity, though, that you just didn't see. So
Exactly.
they're everywhere, aren't they? That you never know where your opportunities are. I mean, Nebraska as well. Who would have thought? So
Exactly.
you're linked in with them. Do you write more for them, or?
I have 2 books. So
Yeah.
that was called Nightmare Realities, and then we did Nightmare Realities 2. And then of course COVID and lockdowns and everything has hit, so we haven't done any more.
Did you find yourself very productive in COVID during the pandemic, or were you the opposite?
COVID didn't affect me at all. I still had work every day.
And you're isolated as well, because writers are that little bit more isolated.
Exactly. We work from home. It didn't, the only difference was having the kids and at home as well. But I mean, they were upstairs doing their schoolwork. They were on their computers doing their, so I kept it, I must say I ran a very tight ship in that I tried not to have the routine disrupted too much, because I got them up at school time, computers, breakfast, computers on, do your work.
Lunchtime.
And I tried to keep it as much of normality as we could. I don't think I wrote too much for myself. I was busy, and I was taking a little bit of a break. I'd written an awful lot in the space of 2016 up to 2020. I had, because I had written for so many anthologies and different things. And when I finished Winterland, I kind of was taking a step back, a little bit of a break. I did some, I normally write for Owl Hollow Press. They're another American publisher, and they release a book, an anthology book every year. So they normally ask me to do a story. I didn't do one for this year, actually. It was the first year I did.
People approach you about writing for an anthology, or how does that work? You've written for a couple. Do people just seem to come to you asking you to write for them?
I have, I'm trying to think, Owl Hollow Press. I think I found them through Facebook. No, it was one of their writers. I read an advanced copy of one of their books. And then it was the second author that they had signed. He's a Welsh author, and he writes fantasy, and they asked me would I read his book, and I did. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. And I seen on their website that they were doing this anthology that they do each year, and I think it was Magic Under the Moonlight was the theme of the anthology for that year. And I went, oh my God. And I sent a Facebook message going, what's,
you have to have me in this. They release it publicly, and it's open for a month, and you have a month, but your word count, you can't write more than 6,000 words. I mean, even 6,000 words is quite a lot, isn't it? For
I'm like going, oh. So I was like sitting, and I was going, right, okay, we have to write a story. A team is Magic Under the Moonlight, and we can't go over 6,000. But I tell my brain, I talk to myself. And I said, right, let's go. We picked up pen and paper, and we wrote, I think my story was Moonlight Magic, and it was a girl, and she discovered magic, and there was evil things in, and she'd lost her dad. Oh God, I'm a bit of a, but they loved it, and they published it in the anthology that year. The following year, or it was one of the years, there was I love to do stories that would bring in Celtic mythology.
Yeah.
So I would have, the realm of fairies and different things, and maybe the old Irish granddad, and he's telling the grandchild the story.
Shanachie, yeah.
Yes, and they just absolutely loved that. And she'd say, I remember her messaging me, she said she was just finished doing edits on it, and she was actually on holidays in Scotland, and she's like, this is like, and where do you come up with the ideas, and how do you begin? I said, I don't know. But it was working with them that I realized how really nice it was to work with a professional publishing company and professional editors, and the difference, in the work. And I just thought, no. And I think that gave me the itch to kind of say, and plus, if I was 100% honest, the reason I self-published was because I was afraid to send it to a publisher in case they said no.
Yeah.
I just didn't have the confidence, and it's like, I'll just do it all myself, and nobody can say no. And then, of course,
but that's it as well. And it's published, and you have it in your hand, and you're like, I'd say it's wonderful having that in your hand, knowing that that's your book, Yeah, that's a lovely feel. Must be a lovely feeling. I'm designing an ebook at the moment, and I can't wait to have it in my hand. Is there any advice that you would give to new emerging writers that you wish someone had told you? Or
yes, definitely. There is no right or wrong way to write your book. And I have it written down here beside me. I keep a note that's on the top. If I'm writing, I put a little cloud on the top in the heading, and it always says, comparison kills creativity. So just don't compare yourself to anybody, because what I read, it might be completely different to what you read, to what my friend reads, to what, there is something. And I know I was so, watching what everybody else was doing. Oh, they're writing 5,000 words a day. Oh, I only did 300.
I know. And you can't help but
I was reading about people writing these in-depth plans for their book, and they knew every little detail, and I was going, oh, I don't do any of that. I must be doing it wrong. I always thought I was doing something wrong, and I have every book I'm writing out on a shelf there in the hall, because I thought, oh, I have to learn all this. And the more I was trying to put myself in those boxes, the more I found I didn't want to write anymore. Writing for me, when I write, it's like just heaven. And I feel amazing. And then when I was trying to write to suit what I was reading about, this is how you do it, and don't use this, and don't use passive voice, and it has to be in this point of view, and I just found I found myself, I'd be writing, but I was analyzing. I was constantly analyzing, and I had to get to the stage where I went, I don't know whether it was an interview with Kit the Wall or one of the interviews Vanessa did during lockdown, and because they did loads of them, but she said, I write 300 words a day, and that's me done. Now, I'm not sure whether it was Kit or whether it was one of the other ladies. I have a funny feeling it was somebody else. But they write 300 words. That's all they aim for.
Yeah.
And they write a book every year. And
so that works for them. And if there's more than 300, just keep going if the flow is there. Yeah.
And I think it was actually Kit that says she doesn't write her books chronologically. If she feels in the mood to do the dance scene, she'll do that today. If she feels. And I thought, that series that Vanessa and Simon Truman did, it was just brilliant, because they had so many, and each week as you listen to them, you went, and it really struck me, you have to own you, and you have to, you're never going to be a writer or a published writer if you don't accept, this is me and this is how I write.
How you write. That's why there's such there's a big, you know, area for any writer, because everyone is unique. Whatever, and like if you're not reading something that you want to read, but then you need to write it. You know, I always feel if I'm looking for something in a shop and it's not there, well then that's a sign you need to write
it's
it.
like if you take, you know, some of the writers that we all love and admire, they didn't toe the line. I'm thinking of Anne Rice, who just passed away there yesterday. And I mean, who didn't read Interview with the Vampire?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I mean, she stepped, you know, and she owned it. And I mean, she opened the gateways for so many like Twilights and, you know, and I don't think it matters how amazing or how terrible your book is. There's always going to be critics.
Yeah.
For
once you have the story, the basis of a good story, I think that's the starting point, isn't it? And a good idea.
Yeah, a good
are you
idea.
reading? What are you reading at the moment? Have you got lots of books on the go?
My Kindle is actually full of quite a few books that are going to come out next year. So there for my Christmas break, I shall be reading advanced review copies. I normally like to try and end the year with kind of selfie-helpy books. So I have bought Will Smith's new biography.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to get into that. And then I have 2 books. I have to pick it up because it's like.
So you like a mixture
on my bed.
You like reading online, and you like
this is you know, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse, and it is. You've probably seen him on Facebook. He just does
beautiful illustrations.
I keep that beside my bed because do you know what? You can just open any page and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, the boy, the horse says, "You fell, but I've got you." You know, it's just profound. It's really lovely. And then I bought this other one is called Belong, and it's it's gorgeous, but it's all about finding your people, creating your community, and just connecting with people who are
like-minded.
Yes, exactly. So I kind of tried to end the year with something kind of inspirational and self-help to get me in the mood for, you know, January, and what are we going to plan for the year, and what are we going to try and do.
Fabulous. You've got lots of books behind you there. Amanda, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you today. You've given loads of information, lots of tips. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm hoping, and I'm sure lots of people will be buying that novel planning journal well before Christmas and after. Thank you so much for your time today, Amanda.
And thanks for having me, Yvonne.
Thank you. And anyone, I'm across most social media platforms. Where can people find you as well, Amanda? You've got your own website. Is it Amanda J. Evans?
AmandaJEvans.com. Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
I even have TikTok. I haven't
TikTok is probably good. That's the genre that your genre, your audience would be, isn't it? So you're on everything. You have to be on a bit of everything, haven't you, these days?
I think you do, yeah.
People looking for you. Thank you so much for your time, and see you all next time on The Writer's Mindset. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.